Dunque, abbiamo qui Daniel Friedlaender, che mi dicono che parla italiano, vero?
Capisco un po'.
Va bene. Che è il responsabile dell'ufficio di Bruxelles dell'associazione praticamente delle big tech mondiali, e quindi vorremmo sapere qual è la posizione dell'industria che rappresenta.
Grazie, grazie. Buongiorno a tutti, sono onorato di essere qui e grazie sottosegretario Butti per la sua visione oggi. So yes, thank you. I'm on my 9th day in the job, so I'm still new, but I'm representing, as you said, the communications and technology firms that provide the services that all of us use every day, whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's at work, whether it was getting here today. So all the things that you do on a daily basis, content streaming, productivity, business uses, transportation, because this is what it's all about. But previously, for almost 20 years, I worked in the content sectors, working in audiovisual, in music, and it's relevant to mention that because one of the last things that I did was I worked on a joint letter across music, sports, gaming, content, civil society, consumers, academics, competitive telecom and mobile operators, members of parliament, all saying that fair share is unfair to Europe. So I mentioned that because the debate is very broad. You have three ways to look at it. You have the numbers, and I think the numbers speak for themselves to show that there is actually no investment gap, and that with the investment already going on now, we are meeting our goals, although there are questions about whether some of the networks are actually empty. We have the very practical national look where things work, and then I'm going to look very briefly at a more high-level look, keeping in mind that our members are also investing over 22 billion a year across Europe in this infrastructure, saving money to the telecoms companies. And so the question that I ask today, that I will try to answer, is the same as I asked when I was chairing the Video On Demand Streaming Coalition, and it's why are we talking about this? To be very simple, it's like putting pineapple on pizza. It does not belong there. Very simple. We all need strong telecoms, and Italy has both invested directly from the government's point of view, as we heard. We've also seen large companies investing in the national infrastructure because there is demand and because these companies have been growing. But the job of a telecoms company is not to tax consumer preference, to monitor what services they're using. It's to provide connectivity. And from what I understood of the intervention just now from Mr. Labriola, I think we'd be happy to give him some tips on how to optimize his own network, because it seems like that might be where their problem lies. And I think a lot of people can help there. Why are we still talking about this? I think Minister Butti has been one of the leading voices of reason in Europe on this, pushing back against what actually started from 20 people and is still only supported by about 20 people. And then the rest of Europe is wondering why, and you've been extremely strong and clear in asking the kind of question we should be asking today. Why would we do this when one of Europe's priorities is to actually boost and support continued digitization, when we've seen the digitization and allowing platform growth brings GDP, brings benefits? Why would we be here at a digital transformation conference about pulling that back with new fees based on success, including of European companies? Because no matter how you frame it, that is unfortunately what this would do. If you have a Serie A derby in Italy and everyone is watching that and everyone is streaming that, they are going to be approached for money. And then the question becomes, how much can businesses absorb before that trickles down into consumers? And we don't want consumers to be paying for this, and especially if it's a hidden fee. We heard in Italy today that the CEOs who were on earlier don't want to raise prices, but what they're actually saying is, we want to raise prices, just someone else should get blamed for it. and that is not in anyone's interest when there are so many other levers and possibilities to look at. Now, if you're looking at the policy detail, which is where I've been working, there has been a discussion recently that this is not a fee, this is not a payment, it's arbitration. But what this actually means practically, if you look at it from a horizontal, pan-European point of view, would be a discussion where in each country, many different companies, including many national champions, would be called to the table and told, you need to pay us. You have no choice, you can't challenge it, this is not a normal process, you will need to pay us. Stanford professor Shewick, who's one of the leading experts on these kinds of negotiations in the world, she said, forcing companies to negotiate in this way removes none of the harms of any of the other forms of dealing with fair share network fees. And to paraphrase her, she said, a pig in a wig is still a pig. And if I could remember that in Italian, I would have said it in Italian. We do think that if some of these telecom companies want to find more money, although many of them are actually paying out record dividends, there are easy solutions. Voluntary structural separation has been discussed. Some companies have done it successfully. The arguments and the excuses keep shifting, but in reality, there are many simpler fixes that do not actually harm the rest of Europe. Just today, the chairman of the European regulators again came out with a very clear statement. There is no market failure, there is no regulatory issues. The only imbalance that might be there is actually at a national level between the telecoms companies who have the imbalance towards the others that they're negotiating with. And I can tell you, having come from the creative sectors, that that imbalance was felt. So we have a situation where we do not want fees to be disguised and then harming Europe. Very simply, we've been talking about this for more than a year this time. 10 years ago, we talked about it for many years. There is no new data. We are still looking for a solution where there is no problem. The European Commission and Mr. Breton, who was referenced, have not released, after months of waiting, the results of a study, probably because we know that the study will show exactly what we've been hearing today. We also have published several articles highlighting some of the data that both the telecoms companies and the Commission have not wanted to show, which again backs up what we've been hearing, that there is more than enough money and investment to do well. So,
I don't want to stop.
I was given a bit more time. I'm going to. Okay, I'm going to.
Late. Sorry.
I will be very quick. The key point here is that every single person and sector would be harmed by this unfair grab, whether it's Internet 4.0, whether it's cloud, whether it's the traffic of individual users, and it would destroy years of commercial partnerships that have actually built Europe. The telecoms companies have grown in symbiosis with content and technology, often bundling as part of their subscriptions. And there's a reason for that. And we do not want these partnerships and years of cooperation to be blown up. There are bigger problems for Europe and the world. We do not need to worry about how this would affect net neutrality. I used to work on the telecoms side, on the competitive side. There is no way this does not affect net neutrality. There is no way this does not actually harm Italy and Europe's digital priorities. And as Minister Butti said, we actually need to break down barriers, not create new ones that will harm digital progress. So let's not charge money on the future to subsidize the past. Let's not allow inefficient networks to then charge for use. Let's work together. In South Korea, where this fee was first proposed, it got very far. Then they realized how bad it would be for consumers, for quality of service, for cost. They've now removed that, and they are back to what works. commercial partnerships, working together to solve our problems. I will cut it short there, but just to say the entirety of Europe is against this for a reason, and we thank you again for your leadership here and for Italy's leadership in Europe, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Ok, grazie.